Hey, welcome to Head to Head Podcast. I'm your host, Liam Morrow, and today I'm going to be ranking all 32 NFL teams. Starting off at number 32, we have the Carolina Panthers. Now, for obvious reasons, they definitely aren't the strongest team defensively, and their offense is kind of lacking in the skill department, but there are things to look forward to. They have Tedero Millen, who looks super promising. He had 5 receptions for 68 yards in his debut as a rookie. I think that is phenomenal. It's a great place to start because then there's no undershooting or overshooting his potential. Moving on, we have Chuba Hubbard, looks super strong. He had 16 carries for 57 yards. Now that is less than ideal for a prominent running back in the NFL, but it could have been worse. He had a better start than most running backs did. Bryce Young looks good on the ground. He had 5 carries for 40 yards, but struggled in the air. He had only 158 passing yards on 18 of 35 with a 51.4% completion rate. And I think that that's just not going to cut it. He needs to pick up the pace and he needs to step up and show us, what he can really do. Now, obviously, like I said, they're lacking in the skill department a little bit. So it's been difficult for him to do that during his career. But he also had a very turnover prone career as well. He's been 2 interceptions and 1 fumble in the first game. I think that is way too much, even if you do have a subpar team. Moving forward, at number 31, we have the Giants. Now, when you think Giants, all I can really let you know and all I can really tell you is just look to the future because they're such a young team and they're still developing. They have, Jackson Dart, rookie QB, Malik Neighbors, sophomore season, although I think he'll be a top 5 receiver by, in the next 3 to 5 years. He'll be out there with Jamar and JD. He might even already be up there. Some people are having that conversation, but I think that we can expect big things from those two. They also got a new running back, a rookie running back who's really solid, and Cam Scadaboo. We can also look forward to their defense with the scary combination, in my opinion, of Dexter Lawrence and Abdul Carter, because Dexter Lawrence is a veteran. He's pretty top tier when it comes to defensive linemen, and Abdul Carter has a really good edge threat. So moving forward to number 30, we have the Cleveland Browns. Now, I could have put them low, but I didn't, and I'll tell you why. Garrett won DPOI in 2023 and is still an incredible player. I think that we have a lot to look forward to from the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, with this draft class, they had so much, they had so many good picks, and they even have a lot of great depth at quarterback. And I think that they're going to experiment a little bit with that. And obviously, this year they're not going to be a Super Bowl contender. They might not even be anywhere near a playoff win. But I think as the years go on, when they get more comfortable, when those rookies that they drafted this year, they develop and they bloom, they'll play a big role in how they get to the playoffs and potentially a Super Bowl. Moving forward, we have the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is the first team that I will say can drop very quickly. They have Cam Ward, which I think he was the best quarterback in this year's draft, and there's so much to look forward to from him. But one man cannot carry an entire team. Now, he has a mediocre receiving core with Calvin Ridley, who's decent. They just picked up Tyler Lockett, who was released by the Seahawks, which is kind of unfortunate. He's way out of his prime. He's old, so he's not really reliable. And Van Jefferson, I think that their overall depth is just not great, and that they need to really invest in the free agency market, and they need to really step it up in their general manager room because there are some questions that I have about this team moving forward. Next, we have the New England Patriots. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, but they're going to be so good this season. And I completely agree. That's why this is a week 1 to week 2 list. This is just from what we know right now. And I could see this team hopping up to 23rd or 22nd place overall. But as of right now, I still need to see Drake May prove some things. They have a new coach in Mike Vrabel, and I think that that'll really help Drake May develop into the player that they think he's going to be. He also has an improved supporting cast too. He has Trey Anderson still, who's a great running back, probably top 10 in the league in my opinion. And then they also picked up Stephon Diggs, who although is a veteran receiver and out of his prime, I think that's much better than what they had last season for Drake May. Number 27, you have the New Orleans Saints. Now, this gets interesting because, like the Tennessee Titans, I think this team can drop significantly, potentially even all the way to 32, because, like I said, the Panthers are young and they can grow. The Saints are old and very lackluster in most of their departments. They did sign Chase Young to a 3-year extension, which I think is great. Their defensive line or defensive interior is also pretty solid. They just signed Justin Reed. They also have Chris Olave on the offensive side of the ball, but there's just no quarterback to get him the ball. And I feel for Chris Olave because I think he's a great receiver, but he needs to get out of, the Saints territory if he ever wants to do something with his career. Now, moving on to number 26. Now, this hurts the soul because I am a diehard Dolphins fan, but after that pitiful showing in week one, I honestly didn't even know where to put them on this list. And obviously, I'm not going to put them at 32, even though they had the worst week one showing of any team with this kind of hype behind them probably ever. I was in shock the whole time. Honestly, don't know how they lost this game. They're an offensive powerhouse. They have Tyreek, Jalen Waddle. I mean, they got Ollie Gordon just in the draft, who's super good as a fullback or even a power back. They have Devon Chan, like the fastest running back in the league. I don't know how you can't score with the best offense in the NFL. It is mind boggling to me. But I also think that there comes a question: is it time to move on from Tua? And I love the guy, but I think that two interceptions in a fumble is just unacceptable. And we did just pick up Quinn Ewers in the draft. This is probably a time that you would want to start getting him those reps, start developing him for future. Because honestly, McDaniel might not have a career with the Dolphins if this season continues to go the way that it is going. Moving forward, we have Las Vegas Raiders at 25. Now, some of you may agree, some of you may disagree, but I love putting them at 25, and I'll tell you why. They just picked up Geno Smith, and they also got Ashton Jeanty in the draft, along with the sophomore season Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, top three tight end in the league, in my opinion. And I think that he's going to be, honestly, I think I could put him top 10 tight end all time when he's done. But Ashton Jeanty, I think people hyped him up so much saying, oh, he's going to dominate the NFL just like he dominated college. It's not the same. It's not the same level of play. The players are much better. And I think that he's going to need time to develop, which is expected. He's a rookie. No one's going to expect him to come win MVP the first year in the league. So I think that given time, Ashton Jeanty will be that dominant running back that everyone expects him to be year one. Smith also super efficient this week, and I'm super proud of what he's been doing. And I hope he continues to. I don't want to see Geno Smith's career fade. Moving forward to 24, we have the Seattle Seahawks. I also think that this one could change up a little bit, and it will change up a little bit as the season goes on. They got defensive reinforcements by adding Demarcus Lawrence and Jaron Reed. Their offense is in shambles, and it's putting a lot of people's jobs in jeopardy. I think that their new offensive coordinator and Clint Kubiak, I don't know how I feel about it. It's a new system. It's going to be a season of change, which can be difficult. Sometimes change doesn't always work because they've had a system implemented for so long. They also lost DK and released Tyler Lockett. So their receiving core has vanished. And I just don't know how that could have been in any way positive to their team. Like there's no hope for this team to get the Super Bowl this year. So I don't know what the goal was there, but you got to think of the future, and I want to see how this season plays out for the Seattle Seahawks. Moving forward to 23, we have the Chicago Bears. Now, there are a lot of unanswered questions with the Chicago Bears, mainly being, can Caleb Williams get it done? Now, I don't think he was given that opportunity last year because of coaching issues and because he wasn't protected by his offensive line. So the Chicago Bears went out and did just that, signing Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, and Drew Dahlman. I think these are some great pickups. You're protecting Caleb Williams, giving him a chance to actually see the playing field and just like read, but he hasn't had that opportunity a lot in his career. So I think his decision making also needs to improve. It needs to quicken. He can't just sit in the pocket forever, otherwise he will get sacked because we have defenses like the Broncos who live and thrive off QBs like Caleb Williams. So I'm looking forward to what he's going to be able to do, but right now I'm not expecting a whole lot from Caleb Williams in the Bears. Moving forward to 22, we have the New York Jets. Now, this team would have been significantly higher on my list if they would have beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'll tell you why they're at 22 when they should be a little bit higher. They just could not close out a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They time and time again they gave them more opportunities, and you just can't do that in the NFL. It's going to cost you. But I am super excited to mention that Armand Membu was an excellent selection in this year's draft because he's the highest rated offensive lineman through the first week of the NFL, and he's a rookie. And I think the way that he played was incredible. Defense is strong and solidified. They have Sauce Gardner, Quentin Williams, and I think that team can succeed this year. I think that they can move up super quickly on this list. I can see them reaching top 15 by game 6 if they, really perform to that level of expertise. Justin Fields, I I think, and I truthfully believe this statement, if Justin Fields succeeds, the team succeeds. And I'll tell you why. Justin Fields is a great dual threat quarterback, but has had little experience in the games. I don't know how he's going to do this season against, more veteran players and more experienced teams. But I think there are huge upsides to this New York Jets team. Moving forward to 21, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Now they have a powerful interior defensive line and just an overall great defense. They have DeForest Buckner, they have Grover Stewart, and I'm honestly shocked because they dominated my Dolphins. Almost a shutout. If it wasn't for, the garbage time score that they gave up, it would have been 33-0. And I think we can attribute that to their defense. Their defense was phenomenal in this game, even though, like I said, I'm salty because I'm a Dolphins fan. I think that we need to give credit where credit is due, and the Colts deserve that credit. Daniel Jones, we got him looking like prime Tom Brady out there with our terrible secondary in Miami, but it's okay because we'll be working on it. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, I will say though, Miami's front seven held Jonathan Taylor to very few rushing yards, even though he had many attempts. Jonathan Taylor, I think, as almost a veteran back, you're getting into that time where it's like, hey, I should be reaching my prime, but I'm not quite a veteran yet. I'm not quite old yet. I think that you need to show us a little more. As someone who is considered a top five back in all of the NFL, you need to step up to the plate and you need to show us what it means to run the ball down the middle and score a touchdown. And I think that statement can be misconstrued as in I'm discrediting what Jonathan Taylor is doing. No, he's a great back, but I want to see more because I know he can do more. Moving forward to number 20, we have the Dallas Cowboys. They have a scary offense with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. I'm a little bit confused on the character development that they're trying to do in the locker room because George Pickens is not your guy for that. I mean, even in week one, he had like what? Two personal penalties where it was just stupidity. He just couldn't control himself. And I think that kind of thing tends to have backlash on a team when they pick up a player like that. So I'm a little bit sketchy about George Pickens. Don't get me wrong. He's a great player. But I also think we need to look at CeeDee Lamb a little bit and say, hey, what happened in week one and what needs to change? Because he had some opportunities there where he should have caught the ball and he just didn't. So that game was very winnable for the Dallas Cowboys, but they lost it and they just didn't show up in big moments. The brights were too light, so they just like didn't perform to the level that we all know they can perform to because this is a playoff contending team. And I think that they need to show us that. So I'm just looking for a little bit more out of Dallas. Moving on to 19, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I really need their defense to step up because it can't just be Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and this offense going down and scoring so many points. The offense doesn't win games. Although it's fun to watch, you need a defense. And I think that Atlanta in free agency, in trades, and even in next year's draft, because like I said, we're looking to the future with all of these teams as well. We can't just look at what they have from week one because week one is not enough evidence to say, oh, this team's bad, oh, this team's good. But I think that Atlanta has the tools to be such a great team. They have a top three back in all of football. Bijan is incredible, not just in the rushing game, but also in the receiving game. He's a great dual threat running back. I think that we need to see a bit more of that. Drake London, I'm a little bit worried about him, not because he's not good, but because he has a new QB, rookie Michael Penix Jr. Although he performed well, I want to see what he does against a much better defense. And with that being said, I do hope they make the playoffs, and I do think they can make the playoffs. I need to see more from them coming in week two to officially determine if I really truthfully believe that they'll get there. Moving on to number 18 of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this defensive line is menacing. They have Josh Sweat, Calais Campbell, and Dalvin Tomlinson. I mean, they just got Calais Campbell back from the Dolphins, which I'm a little bit sad about, but it's good to see him going back to his home team, and he's still, even for a player who's on the verge of retirement, he's still got so much, enthusiasm about the game because he loves to play. And I think he's such a great player and he's such a good veteran leader for this team. And with that being said, moving to the offensive side of the ball, we have a great QB, one of the top three dual threat QBs in the National Football League right now in Kyler Murray. And he has some great tools with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, also another great tight end. And I think that also with Marvin Harrison Jr., we're going to see him really step out this season. He's really going to improve. And I think that he's going to have a huge year. And I'm super excited to see it. Moving forward onto 17, we get the Jacksonville Jags. Now, this one could have been moved down a little bit, but I was thoroughly impressed with most of their team. They had a good showing in week one. Brian Thomas Jr., an elite receiver, could have seen a little bit more from him in week one, but he had an overall good showing. Travis Etienne Jr., my goodness, you are a dog. 56 yards, including a 71-yard touchdown. That is just, you know what? Good for you, man. I watched him in college. and I always thought he was going to be a great running back. I also really loved his brother, Trevor. You guys are two of my favorite running backs that I really hope do well in the NFL. And I think that this team has figured out things since last year. Last year, this is what I expected them to be like. I expected them to win games, win close games, and even make a playoff run. But unfortunately, injuries and just lackluster plays held them back from that. Also, Travis Hunter looks super good in his debut. I mean, he had some great plays. He had, I think, 4 receptions, and he was pretty good for a roo like I said before, I think that he was probably a top 5 performer as a rookie, and I think that he should continue to do what he's doing, continue to develop, continue to learn the game the way it's played in the NFL, and then maybe we'll get that, that Deion Sanders-esque vibe from him later on. Moving forward to 16, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I don't know about y'all, but they got A-Rod looking like the MVP out there with 22 for 30, 244 yards, and 4 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. Oh, that is a heck of a stat line. That is MVP statistics. I think that he has had such a great start to the season. I mean, they obviously have a pretty solid receiving core. They picked up DK, and I think that he was a pretty solid pick for them. They also have Jalen Ramsey, and I think it's funny that Jalen Ramsey and DK are teammates because everyone knows there's bad blood between them. And there was even a play in the game where DK defended Jalen Ramsey. And I also want to note that Jalen Ramsey shut this game out. He had a deflection that completely cut all hopes for the Jets. And I think that that is something that we don't usually get to see from a cornerback who's past his prime. He's not bad, but he's a little bit past his prime. He's not as good as he was when he was on the Jags. Moving forward to number 15. Now, this one I know will be controversial because of how horrendous their defense is. Although they had a good week one like showing, they played great in week one, but I think we all know deep down this defense is going to cost them, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, let's also keep in mind that if the goal of the game was to score as many touchdowns as possible, the Cincinnati Bengals would be ranked number one. But just because you can score a lot of points doesn't mean you can stop the other team from scoring a lot of points. And for that reason, I put them at 15, even though they have Joe Shiesty, Joe Cool. They have Jamar Chase, Triple Crown King, and even his best friend T. Higgins. And they have a great running back in Chase Brown and a pretty solid offensive line. But I can't get past their defense. It's just not that great as far as these next 14 teams go. And ironically, the next team on the list has probably one of the top 3 best defenses in the league currently. Moving forward to number 14, we have the Houston Texans. They have arguably the most dominant defense in the NFL. They have Will Anderson Jr., Derek Stingley. Like, these are guys that I would not want to mess with on the football field, especially as a team that's playing away. I would not want to come face to face with Derek Stingley because I know he's going to strap me up. He's going to lock me down. And even as a quarterback, I don't know who's stopping Will Anderson Jr. He's so good. Also, on the offensive side of the ball, they are impressive as well because they have Nico Collins, Tank Dell. They have a CJ Stroud. I mean, they have some good pieces, but I think again we need to look at the overall scheme of things. Have they ever really been able to make that playoff push like we hoped they would? Last year, they kind of did. I mean, they weren't horrible, but they need to do more. And I think that that's going to start with CJ Stroud, obviously as a sophomore. It's hard to expect too much from him or even too little because of how his rookie year went. And I'm not expecting him to put up numbers like that again, but I do want to see him, throw a few Hail Marys. I want him to improve drastically, even though that's a lot to ask. Moving forward, September 13, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Now, they do have a rookie quarterback in JJ McCarthy, but his receiving core is so good that I think it's at the point where it's like, hey, you put the ball anywhere near Justin Jefferson, he's going to catch it and he's going to score because Justin Jefferson is top 2 wide receiver in the league, arguably the best. But obviously, due to injuries, I'm going to say that Jamar is a little bit better than him, and he obviously was a Triple Crown King. But Jay Jettis is on his heels, and I think that JJ McCarthy, even though he had a rough start to the game, he showed us that he is worthy of being the starting QB and that he can close out games for this Vikings team. I also want to note that their defense still top 5 in the NFL, incredible defense. Andrew Van Ginkel is such a good veteran leader for them, and I think that any rookies that they've brought in will truthfully be able to bloom under Andrew Van Ginkel as a leader. Moving forward on to number 12, we have the San Francisco 49ers. Now, this is interesting because obviously in week one, they played pretty solid, but there was an injury that cost them. And let me say this to all you 49ers fans. I'm sorry, but George Kittle is out for at least 4 games, and that's at least. And I think that that's a bit tragic because we also have to be worried about CMC and how he does. Although he had a really good week one showing where he had 22 carries for 69 yards and 9 receptions for 70 yards, that is going to dwindle down if he can't take care of his body because obviously he dealt with Achilles issues last season. And even during this year, before week one, there were talks of him having that Achilles pain again, and he might want to get back on a plane to Germany. Now, I truly believe in this 49ers team for a few reasons. They have really good offense. Obviously, George Kittle, despite the injury, he'll come back and he'll be just as good as he was when he left. They have Brock Purdy, who I'm quite unsure about, although he's played really good these past few years. They also have CMC. Like I said, CMC, when healthy, is arguably the best running back in the league. And there's only two people that I would put in that conversation with him, and that's King Henry and Saquon. And obviously Saquon, Mr. Backwards Hurdle. He's incredible. He's done things that no one else has done for this game. But they also have a great defensive side of the ball with Fred Warner leading the charge and Nick Bosa. Oh my goodness. He ruins QB's days. He wrecks the offensive line and gets sacks. He's so good. And I'm excited to see what they'll do if their team can stay healthy this year. Moving on to number 11, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I said it before and I'll say it again. Experience will win you games. Not every game, but it will win you games. Now, they have Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans as the leaders for these young new talents, and Emeka Ibuka, who had 2 touchdowns in his debut as a rookie. Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans and that receiving core with Chris Godwin are all starting to build some serious chemistry because they know how important the development of these players is. And they understand that they got a steal with Emeka Ibuka. And I'm super excited to see what he does throughout the year. Their defense was, oh my goodness, it was impeccable. They shut down the the run game for the Falcons, holding Bijan to 24 yards on 12 carries. Bijan is not the type of guy to get 2 yards a carry. He's like a 4 to 5 yard a carry guy. I'm pleasantly surprised that the Bucs are able to do this. Moving forward onto the best defense in the NFL, the No Fly Zone 2.0. At number 10, we have the Broncos. Now, they have last year's DPOI in Pat Surtain, and I think he's better than he was last year. So I don't think it's a long shot to say that he could win DPOI again. And I think that we have big things to expect from this defense. Now, where it gets a little tricky, the reason they're ranked 10th rather than higher up on the list is because of their offense. Their offense obviously had a pickup of RJ Harvey, but I don't think that's enough to say that they're going to be a top, team in the entire NFL, like where they're going to have this huge playoff run. I don't think it's enough to say all that. So we're just looking to see what it's like a test. We're going to see where they place and how well we think they will do next year because I don't see them going to the Super Bowl this year. Although their defense is Super Bowl caliber, I don't think that their offense is good enough to get in there. Moving forward to number 9, we had the Detroit Lions. Now, this is an interesting one because Samuel Laporta, Amon St. Brown, and even rookie Isaac Tesla, they all look super good. They look comfortable and they're getting their routes done. They're catching touchdowns. They're scoring like you would expect the Lions to do. And even with the return of Aiden Hutchinson back from that super scary injury of last year, I don't know if y'all remember that. I remember watching that game and being like, this man's career is in jeopardy. So I think there are some questions that are being raised both on the defensive line and on the offensive line because they have lost a few pieces to that. And moving forward, we have the Rams at number 8. Now they got a pickup of Devontae Adams, and I think that that is a good veteran pickup because there are things that he still can bring to the table. And I think that we need to be on the lookout for this receiving core with Puka Nakua and Devontae Adams. They have veteran leaders, and Puka is super consistent. So bringing in a veteran such as Devontae Adams only improves his chances of being, a top 3 receiver in the league next year because I know that's what he's looking to do, and I know that's what he's competing for. So I'm going to say that they have a chance to make a playoff run, and I would not, be surprised if they did. And if they even got to the championship, obviously not the Super Bowl, but I think they could get past the divisional and they could surprise a few people. Their defense really stepped up. They sacked CJ Stroud 3 times. Now that doesn't usually happen because, like I said, that Houston team is solid. So there you go. On number 8 is the Rams. And moving forward to number 7, we have Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. Now, this team could have been higher on my list, but it gets a little tricky because these next 6 teams are all teams that I think could possibly make the Super Bowl. But, Jaden Daniels' development has been super quick. I think that it's super impressive what he's been able to do as a rookie, even more impressive than what CJ Stroud was able to do. I think that we need to acknowledge what Jaden Daniels is gonna do for the game, how he's gonna change the game. We also have Krosky Merritt, who can learn from Austin Eckler, a veteran who has had success with the Chargers and with the Commanders. I think that this is a great place for Krosky Merritt to be. Their defense held the New York Giants, although it's not saying much, held the New York Giants to 51 total rushing yards. Now, it's still an NFL team, so this is good. This is good news for them. Moving forward, we have the Chiefs. Now, I know everyone's like, oh, but they lost week one to the Chargers. And I'm like, well, yeah, but did you forget who they have? They have Patrick Mahomes. They have Andy Reid. Those two have cooked up a recipe for success. And I think there's no counting them out ever because last season they won, I think, 11 one score games. That is the most ever. I don't think we can ever count them out truly. Now, I put at number 5 the Chargers. Now, this is obviously because they beat the Chiefs, but we should highlight that Patrick Mahomes looks like his old self. He looks super good. And the only question I have for the Chiefs is what is the Travis Kelce situation? Because he's married Taylor Swift. He's done it. He's complete. He's a top tight end of all time. He's got the girl. Does this year mean anything to him? Does he really want to go out and get another Super Bowl? Or is he comfortable with finishing his legacy right now? Um, that being said, let's move forward on to number 5, the Chargers. Justin Herbert, oh my goodness. I don't know if he's been getting good luck from Madison Beer or what, but that man was playing out of his mind against the Chiefs. And I think that it's also shocking that Quentin Johnston learned how to catch. Like last year, there were memes all over the internet about this guy's hands and how he needed like stickum, which is this illegal substance they used to use back in the day to catch. And I think that him learning how to catch has really opened opportunities for this Chargers team. Also, I want to note that in the Chiefs and Chargers game, Terry Eartart had a chance to be ejected, and he should have been ejected, but he wasn't. And because of that, he had these 2 huge plays, like deflections as a defensive lineman, that without a doubt would have been a touchdown for the Chiefs, and they would have won that game. Moving forward to number 4. Now, this could be a bit controversial, but I have the Packers at number 4, and for good reason too. They're a very solid team. They just picked up Micah Parsons from the Cowboys, and their defense went from being good to great immediately, and they showed that in week 1. This defense is just next level. I also want to note that Jordan Love has been taking control of this offense. He has really been showing that he is a leader on this team and he deserves to be the starting quarterback. He was effective and efficient in week 1. I think that this team had the toughest schedule through week 3, and it is they played week 1 and 2 already. They played the Lions and the Commanders. Those 2 teams played in the divisional last year. Guys, we need to take that into serious consideration. That is a big deal, beating both of those teams. And they didn't just beat them. They beat them by a fairly considerable amount. Now, it's not like a 21-point blowout or anything, but 14, 13 points is something to talk about. Is this team going to compete for the Super Bowl this year? And I think that it's definitely possible, especially with the addition of Micah Parsons. Tucker Kraft, also an incredible stat line for week 1 as a tight end. He had 6 receptions, 124 yards, and a touchdown. And I think that that is so good for him. But it also takes away the attention from Jaden Reed, opening the door for him to do things because people are like, oh, week 1, Tucker Kraft had 124 yards on a very good defense. Okay, but let's talk about Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed will also run you down. He will route you up, moss you. He can do it all. And I think that he's probably the most undervalued player in the NFL. Like people just don't recognize how good he is. And I think that we need to start recognizing that because Jaden Reed will have a good career in the NFL. Moving forward to number 3, I know it's going to get controversial right here, but I think that it is true where I stand on this team. Number 3, I have the Eagles. Am I questioning whether or not they can get back to the Super Bowl? No, I completely believe that they can get back to the Super Bowl this year, and I completely believe that they can win it. They have Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Reed Blankenship. They got the 2 best white players in the NFL right now. I'm not worried about them getting back to the Super Bowl. What I am worried about, though, the reason that they are at number 3, wide receiver 1, A.J. Brown. I think that we have to ask some serious questions about what happened. I watched that entire game. He was targeted twice. The entire game. A.J. Brown is one of the best wide receivers. I would argue that he is top 4, maybe even top 3 in the entire league, and they did not give him the ball enough. I think that it was insane that he had 1 catch and it came in the 4th quarter. And I think that we need to start asking that front office some questions about that. The offensive coordinator, I don't know what the game plan is. I'm not hating on you guys just yet, but if things with AJ Brown don't change, we will have questions. Also, rookie Jihad Campbell forced a fumble, and that was a super big determining factor in this game. And we need to consider that into consideration because without that, I don't know if they would have been able to win that game. It was a 20-24 game. I think that that says a whole lot about the Cowboys as well, who, if they would have won this game, I would have put them in the top 10. Now, obviously, it's the Eagles coming off of the Super Bowl. We still want to see how they can do this year. Moving on to number 2. Any guesses? If you were thinking the Ravens, you were correct because King Henry, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith. Need I say more? That's like out of all the rosters, if you would take the Pro Bowl players and like when you're doing an all-time draft, that's what you want. Those players are so good, and I can't see them not making a playoff run. Now, obviously, they had a huge 4th quarter collapse, and before we get to that, I want to talk about DeAndre Hopkins. This man has gone from team to team, but that one-handed catch was just wow. You can still do it, and you can still do it to a very high level. And I applaud you, DeAndre Hopkins. I just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're a great receiver. Don't let no one tell you nothing else. That fourth, going back to that 4th quarter collapse, I'm not going to say that that was as much on the Ravens as it was that the Bills wanted that game more. The Bills have grit. They've always had grit. And I'll tell you where it starts. Josh Allen, 33 for 46, 394 yards, 71.7% completion percentage, and 0 interception. Wow. I mean, obviously he was the MVP last year, so it's no surprise that he's competing at an MVP type level. But I think that it needs to be talked about more what Josh Allen does for this team, what he brings to the table. They mounted a historic comeback in the 4th quarter. I think it was with 8 minutes left. They came back from a 15-point deficit. I also want to acknowledge Keon Coleman, who had 8 receptions and 112 yards. And that was mostly in the 4th quarter. I think that needs to stay consistent. If he can do that, this Bills team can make a deep playoff run. Moving forward, we have Dalton Kincaid, 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. That might be one of the best showings from a tight end in week 1. We also have James Cook, 51-yard touchdown. And I think obviously people are like, "Oh, what about fantasy football?" This man does it in real life and in fantasy football. I think that he is a great running back. And even though he's getting older, we still need to be on the lookout for him. And do I believe that they can get to the Super Bowl? I'll look you in the eyes and tell you absolutely this Bill team can and most likely will make the Super Bowl. Be on the lookout for next week's episode where we re-rank them again because teams are going to win and teams are going to lose. Thank you for tuning into the Head to Head podcast. I hope you really enjoyed. I hope this was informative. And let me know down below if you have any changes to my list. Let me know if you think that there's a different team that's going to make the Super Bowl. Good day and God bless.